All right, ladies and gentlemen, John here, going to talk about secular churches again, I reckon, right? And
Yep.
you were slightly displeased with how it all went before. You want to expand a bit on what you said, or?
Yeah. I guess it would probably be easiest for me to can you bring up the picture of um the monkey on the cloud?
The monkey
You
on
know
the cloud.
the pictures that I sent. I can send it to you on Facebook right now if you want.
Okay.
But like that's pretty much all the dogma, if you want to call it. Like that's pretty much all it is, which is just um, which is it's a picture of a cloud. Uh, but I mean, it's kind of like just rational egoism, basically. And then, um, okay, there I sent it.
All right. In Facebook Messenger?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's probably taking a second to upload. So this
yeah.
is an image that is what, like an analogy for the way that you want to teach the dogma, or what?
No, well, it like because when I first started on this, my thinking was that uh, with the like whether there's a god or gods like type thing that are outside, that you face after. My way of uh, dealing with that before, and this was before I met Rand. Oh, I don't think I sent it. I just had it. Okay, there it goes. But so since you can't like disprove and uh, like people have that wall up in between that. Like I know it's ridiculous. Like I'm not giving it valid. Um, but what I wanted to do was then create something that was like, well, if your God doesn't value these principles, then fuck it. I don't have any respect for it at all. And like that was my way of trying to approach, I guess, morality. Um, and I mean, I'm very happy that I found Rand because then like I didn't have to deal with the higher level stuff because like I didn't even realize that religion is just primitive philosophy. I was just looking at it as okay, religion and psychology are the same area, but religion has the like the it owns morality, so that needs to be changed because I did recognize that in order to actually make a real difference, not just a short term one, you had to address it at reality or at the morality level.
You say it owns morality, but I think the reason it owns morality is because it owns
At, at,
epistemology.
at that time is how I viewed it. Is what I
Well,
mean.
oh, okay.
Uh,
Well, I mean, you mean the fact that when you talk to somebody about morality and psychology and whatever, if they're religious, they can default to their religion. Is that what you mean by it owns it?
yeah, like
Re-
when I was talking with you about the kid whose connection was deeper with with his pastor than it was with me as a counselor. So no matter like the depth that I ever got with him, no matter what, it was always trumped by the pastor who's and Christianity's morality is your starting foundation, the very first foundation of if you picture an individual like a pyramid, the first level is black tar, it's sin, you're terrible. Like that's the first level. So even if I helped the client theoretically clear out, all the bad emotions because what a pastor and a counselor are, they're just a toilet. They're a toilet where clients come to them and they get rid of their bad emotions or their frustrations, their stress, all the stuff that they don't know. I mean, we are monkeys. We are like um to a high percent of us is. I'm not saying like we need to interact with each other. I'll just state no. The idea is to get people to use reason first because I want a civilized world, so I don't have to worry about people who are a threat. But there is a certain percent of our DNA and our nature that involves grooming and having those connections with other people, and it is important to have those because if um one, loneliness is lethal like that. There have been, I'm not sure how they studied that exactly, but there is a lot of stuff on that, and depression, especially in males, is on a but so a counselor or a pastor effectively is just someone who people come to be groomed emotionally, or how however you want to look at that, and then they like kind of just shake off their stuff like a dog, and then they go back into the real world and start their next week or however and each week like I think a pastor is more effective than a counselor. So,
Let's not use pastor. Let's have him be the chief. Let's take
okay.
a secular word from our Indian.
It would actually, I guess, be helpful then if we just establish, so that way I'm jumping between counselor or pastor, so that way I'm very clear.
Say
what word?
The chief of the secular. It's a secular club, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think to clarify, let's have the word of secular club, and let's say the chief is the one leader of the secular club, right?
Okay, that's fair.
And I think if we think of it in those terms, like we're all familiar with what a club is. It's not a religion, and it's not a business either. It's not there to make cash. So maybe this is funded the way Benjamin Franklin's original libraries were funded, by generous people in the community who believe these things should occur.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking of like the Boy Scouts as a club where somebody in the town gave us some little building, and it was up to us to go fix the leaky roof and sweep it out and clean it and clean up the... And so it's like not a very high cost thing, and it thrives on the input of effort from its members. And the leader of that is some sort of, I like chief because I like to use Native American.
I'm totally fine with that, and chief is very accurate because I know that objectivists. I guess if you want to look at me as someone who is who left counseling, an abandoned counselor as right now. Like I agree with objectivism. Like if people want to call me that, good. If not, fine. But I mean, sorority houses, their periods lock up or sync up. Like, loneliness does kill. Like, if there are studies out there, so people can do their own research on that. But depression, when you're very connected with a girlfriend or boyfriend, and then that breaks up, like that's a very powerful. Like I don't know what that connection is, but it is. These connections are very deep in us, and they have to be addressed in some way. And we want reason to be the foundation, but at some point in the life, like loneliness kills, but so does starvation. But we want the free market to address that, and it to be volitional and addressed in the correct way. But it is something that does need to be addressed. And I don't know how many thousands of years, but over 50,000 years, we were in groups because we had to be safe, and we couldn't like survive outside of that. we had our own obviously personalities and all that stuff within the group, but there is a very powerful, like, I don't think you can have a full life without having strong connections with different people, and it has to be addressed in some way. And I think that building some way to address that is the ideal way to solve this solution and take us from where we are to the ideal world. And Rand already gave us the high level philosophy, um, and we already have the political party to address that at the top. Now we kind of just need the a system to address people at the fringes, or as people are, and um, and I think this social club with one chief who's uh, is good, and it is volitional, so it's not like a dictator, you know. But one thing that is very powerful about that is, I will use Mark Pellegrino because he's in, the objectivist community. Let's say he went to one of these, and then someone who's a fan of his, but is never going to be well known socially, nor are they going to be someone who's a John Galt and be business savvy and very successful in that way. Uh, but for one hour a week, that person is on the same level as Mark in front of that chief, because the chief would have has two relationships. One is with the group as a whole. They kind of deal with the safety of the group. Just like back in the day, a chief would secure the perimeters. So, and I 100% want mass shooting drills and that kind of shit, because that is serious. Antifa is only going to get worse. ISIS is only going to get worse. These kind of things need to be addressed so that when the world as we have it currently happens, we are ready. But so the chief takes care of the defense, but then also deals with the drama inside the chiefdom, or the social club, and it's good to have kind of that arbitrator that everyone views, as long as they've earned it, and they will obviously have to maintain that worthiness of being viewed in that way. But so they have the relationship with the group, and then they have a one-on-one relationship with everyone else. And so if you look at it as a hierarchy, there's the chief, and then everyone else is equally second. So that fringe person who's never going to be famous and never going to be a very good business savvy person, they're always just going to be, a second-hander. But for 1 hour a week, they are equal to this person who everyone knows, and that would effectively act as like flushing a toilet for that person. Whatever frustrations or stress or crap that they've dealt with that past week, now now it's a new week, and it's like, you wake up, you take a shower, it doesn't last you forever,
So the weekly mass, as we would think of it, is a way of hitting the reset button?
Yes. That is one of the things that it does. And you don't have to come. Like I said last time, some people will only want to come 2 times a year. There's a lot of people in Christianity who only go to Easter and Christmas. And for some people, I'm guessing that there are just those type of people across the board who are very personal, but do need that connection, because what the chief actually is the chief is the elimination of politics because everyone, because if you're looking at it as just a tribe back when saber-tooth tigers are happening, okay, you have your personal level, and then you have the upper level, but the upper level back then was only dealt with by the people who wanted to fight for that, and then but it was only a few people, and then everyone else was just living their life. But they have to have that strong connection to the political figure, because if they don't, then their security is like the further you are away from the political figure, the chief, the less likely you are to be up on the value of people they want to protect first.
Yeah, I can't help but think of the Greeks and their assemblage and the way that it was just they let every man speak, and the first thing they said when they started was, "Who wishes to address the assembly?" And then whoever wanted to address the assembly did, and some guy who was just a poor guy had a really good plan, and everybody liked the plan, and he became the most powerful man in Athens and rebuilt Athens.
Okay.
And he was just a poor farmer, and he said in one of his speeches, he said, "I may not know how to play the flute or the lyre, but I know how to make a city great." And, because there are all these snobs who are really well educated, and they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, Themistocles, he doesn't know much at all." So they had this system where they had a, whatever aristocracy and stuff there may have been behind the scenes. At the end of the day, when they all assembled, before the law, they were equal. And every man could address on an equal level the assembly.
Yeah.
And so, whatever your abilities are and whatever your knowledge level is, whatever your age is, that wouldn't matter in the clubhouse or whatever, the secular church. You would, the secular club, you would be able to address the chief on a level footing. And
Yep.
not only that, maybe it should rotate once a year. The chief should either be reelected or stand for someone else to take his place, depending on some system of some kind. Perhaps there'd have to be.
I'm open to some kind of objective standard to determine that. Like, I basically got, because I wanted it to have as little like rules as possible, but obviously you have to have some kind of constitution to defend, rights. But
well, you could just have a facsimile of the U.S. Constitution in miniature for whatever your purposes were inside the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And then also Robert's Rules of Order are just an undeniably good way to run any situation where there's 3 or more people. So
Okay. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it's just like there's one speaker at a time. You're recognized by the authority to speak or not. Just general stuff like that. All the stuff that you see the Senate and the Congress doing. Just regular general how you run a meeting. So a couple reasonable things like that. But that's all details. Yeah, that's no big deal.
Yeah. And for the services, there wouldn't be just like one kind. Like, because I think the service that you described, as far as like different people having ideas and wanting to come up and share them, that would be a different service than, all right, we're coming to clean our emotions. Because like that kind of service, I actually think the best way to do that service is model it after some type of that service would start off like a WWE entrance of like excitement and getting people up, and because that type of service would be about just like, like going to a concert, a music concert. Okay. So like Ayn Rand talked about, exactly like Ayn Rand talked about then, art, like Onar was bringing up, for that emotional experience. And familiarity does help with being able to then really enjoy the experience. so having people who you're familiar with then the safety protocols, you know who, um, like when you enter an unfamiliar territory, part of your energy has to go towards recognizing all the new things, and so that's why I'm saying that one advantage of having a social club is, you know, you're going there for an emotional wash. You're just getting in the shower, with all your friends, and you're just cleansing your stress, your frustrations, and you're just shaking it off. And then, okay, see you guys next week. Or maybe you'll see them the next day when you both are also part of the debate club or whatever. But like there wouldn't be just one service for everything.
All right, yeah, I don't know exactly what this emotional cleansing thing's all about, but I just don't see, like, when you said it's hitting the emotional reset button once a week. So the best thing I can come up with is I don't care for concerts and I don't care for groups and stuff, but if I had the chance to go to one group once a week and sing the national anthem with them or something like that, and then I might be able to stand that, you know.
I mean, and you it sounds like you're someone who is just not interested in that type of experience. And
Well, because I couldn't get a group of people together I would care to be around. But if I wanted to, be around a group of people, then what I'd want to do is sing the national anthem, I think, or something like that. And if I could find a group and get together like that, I'd probably like to. And a year or two ago and more, I would have liked to go have a beer with them or something. So now I don't know if you want alcohol involved in the place or not. It strikes me as not a place to have alcohol. So that's bringing up a different subject. I don't mean to bring that into it. I don't know what if we should say.
That's more of a details thing that I haven't like addressed because that is more of a a later issue.
Yeah, yeah, and I would think maybe there would be possibly alcohol would be okay, but then it strikes me as very problematic. Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's a.
Yeah. I'm not sure how that would probably be not like part of the thing. Maybe it would be there would be a maybe in the chieftain part, one of the buildings would be a hall that people could rent out for private time for stuff like that, but yeah, I haven't really thought about that fully yet, that issue.
Yeah. Yeah, keeping the mind and the body clean could be part of the doctrine, and therefore we don't advocate alcohol, but do whatever you want on your free time, something like that. Keep drugs and alcohol out of the secular clubhouse. We come here to use our mind, not to drown our mind out or something like that.
I'd be fine with something like that.
Yeah, I think you'd have to have some sort of doctrine, because if you did have, like, even if you had an adult section at one end where alcohol was used, and then you had all these kids playing in the other end, that's really suspicious, and nobody's going to like the idea.
Yeah. So, I have to address all the issues. But I'm basically like.
Well, I'm thinking, what's the first version to open up, and when? I mean, if we're talking, my audience might be willing to help with such a thing. If we're talking about a reasonable thing that could actually happen next week or next month or next year, then. It's fine to work on the theory of this, but we've got a lot of people around us today who want some sort of religion or something. They're trying to go to Jordan Peterson and stuff for their religion.
Yeah.
And they want, if we could get them together once a week at a place where they were free to come and learn carpentry during the week, and then at the weekend they hear some sermon of some kind, what they would think of as like a sermon. And it's the high chief getting up there and saying, we have to remember, the fact that morality comes from being an individual. And he'll talk about that for 20 minutes on why you can't think of morality in a group way, and it has to be your view of the universe that makes morality correct. And then he's done, and people can ask questions, or they stand up and say hallelujah or sing the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever their thing is.
I mean, yeah, like,
Is that a
like,
do I have your? Am I thinking on the same direction you're
yeah,
thinking?
like, I mean,
Or do you
well,
think is this more
I'm-
emotional? Like, am I missing the emotional angle that you keep mentioning?
well, like, well, I think you are unaware to the degree that some other people like that is actually an issue because, for example, and I may be wrong or I may be right, but I'm gonna assume that I'm correct. So just I guess follow and see if, I think so. Women are more group first than individual first until they go through menopause. At, at at like some like you still want to teach women to think first individually. You still want them to use reason and all this stuff. What I'm thinking about is biologically how they're set up. A man is much more individual because and they individually if they can reach the top then there's so much more incentive to so if you're an individual and you can stand out then you're getting rewarded and also, if you're a male, you can go to a different tribe and take over, or you can go off on your own until you find a tribe or something.
Yeah,
But
women have no incentive to climb the economic ladder. They can marry the guy at the top of the economic ladder just by looking pretty and seducing him and smiling at him. They don't have to climb that ladder.
yeah,
So it's easy for them to move up the ladder. So men, in order to better themselves, they have to climb that ladder, right?
yeah, yeah, that's more, yeah.
So women just aren't interested in. They don't get anything out of it. Why should they go work 70 hours a week? They don't get anywhere.
Yeah,
it's just hard work. Yeah, and they're are they biologically set up to do that, or is that just the way that men and women's interaction is? But whatever it is, it's a metaphysical fact. I mean, some people are going to say they're not biologically blah blah blah, but it's just a metaphysical fact of the way men and women work together. Women can smile and get the guy at the top of the hierarchy. Men can't. There's no woman at the top of the hierarchy for men to get.
Men who can smile their way up, I guess. But like,
yeah, but who are they smiling their way up on? The women ladder? The women aren't on a ladder. The women aren't working their ass off and producing all kinds of stuff that we're trying to get control of and vying for. You know, so
yeah.
a woman can smile her way up the man's ladder because the men have a damn ladder.
I do think there are a few men who can, if they're pretty enough that a successful man then wants that man around them to attract like that you like.
You're
so
right.
That's what I'm saying. There are a few, but that a few.
For example, every single president in history has been more than 6 feet tall.
Okay.
Now, we've got brilliant people that are 5'11". Brilliant. None of them have ever been president. Why? Why do we demand tall men for president?
That the
authority,
fundamental defense, the fundamental defense of the tribe.
Right, something like that. We could take it there, or the fact they look like an authority, which could talk to the fundamental defense of the tribe. So there's something there. However important it is or not, I don't know, but it's there, and it's definitely part of our conversation.
Look up sometime gossip, because gossip is very like important to human experience. Like it's been a while since I read them, but it was a couple of years ago. But it was something about how gossip is very important to like human well-being. You know, it's our way of connecting with other people. So if connection is important, then being able to connect well and so you can see where gossip then would be in there. And women are, I think, mostly, like you said, based on looks. Women, I think, also then it did affect their positioning somewhat, but like that's why they're more verbally catty, like towards each other, because they didn't want to physically fight. Men can physically fight, and it's okay because we've done it, and our stuff is hidden enough that likely it's not going to get damaged. But if women were to physically fist fight, they could cause all kinds of damage. And so that's why I think being verbal and having connections is important for women, especially, but and also because naturally women were never the chief because of the why the hell would you send a woman to kill a leopard when we could sell a fringe person, like a fringe beta male who's really low on the totem pole? Because if we sacrifice him, one male can still impregnate, all the women. And and I do think that is also why it is important for uh, those fringe people to have a connection to the tribe in some way or the chief, because the lower they were on the totem pole, the more likely they were to be forgotten by the tribe or, pushed off to be the sacrifice to the leopard so the rest of the people could get away. And so having a connection is important because if they don't, then that that fear of the leopard or dying is so overwhelming that I think it does play a much bigger factor in someone who's farther out than someone like you who like do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so you're saying there is some modern, even though we're not afraid of the leopard anymore, there is some modern impetus, a natural impetus in us to not be distanced from the group because it's dangerous for us. We might be just thrown to the leopard by the group if we're not at least on par with the group in some way.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely, I see even objectivists fear being thrown away from their own little groups.
That's why I think some of the Civil War, if you want to call it that, or the rough is somewhat that. Like, I'm not going to name names, but you can tell when some responses are more emotional than objective, and then where.
And that's out of fear. That's out of fear that they'll be distanced from their group and the protections of their group.
Yeah. Like, and this is maybe another outlandish thing by me, but I'm pretty sure that's where stuff like Tourette's comes out, where I think someone probably had a hard time expressing themselves, and then that's how they became known. Like at some point they did something, and then that was how they were known. And even though it's like an outburst or something, if people accept them, then it's like that's their unique characteristic in some way. I'm not explaining it that well, but what I'm trying to explain is that having a unique, standing out within the group is important because the more people who understand or who identify you and see you, then your chances of survival do go up. And the way that I look at all of this stuff is just, okay, it accounts for only 1% of the 100% equation. So it is in there somewhere, but how does it fit in? Because at the end of the day, if we want to be a civilized society, we need our foundation on individual rights, freedom of speech, reason, yada, yada, yada. At some point, though, these things need to be addressed if we are to maximize our human experience and.
Yeah, no, I think the way you can address them is you can say, it seems to me that these things are important, therefore I'm going to start a secular clubhouse that has classes in skills, it has classes in mental health, it has classes in psychology of self-esteem, and it has blah blah blah, and these are all voluntary and people can come as they want, and I'm doing this because I believe that objectivism is important. So yeah, I think that's or because I believe that mental health is important. That's ultimately what you're saying. You believe that you want people to be mentally healthy and happy.
Yeah, and then that rip like, and if you have a good foundation of that, then education and everything else just like is, you can do that because, for example, the person on the very outer fringe, if fear is so overwhelming, how can they learn? Their 50% of their energy is going to calming down or whatever. But if you can, get them to a good place where they don't have to worry about that stuff because they have a good connection to achieve, then they can focus all on education, and instead of half their worry about fear, maybe they're spending 5% worried about the whatever, fears that kids have, but like it's, now I can think straight.
Yeah, I don't know how many emotional snowflakes there are going to be once we get a healthier culture. And
I agree.
I don't know. I don't know how many emotional snowflakes will be attracted to your group, because you don't have something mystical there at the end of the day or something like that. So, so you might have less of a problem with emotional snowflakes than you think. You might, if you want to help those emotional snowflakes, it might not be possible. They might have to help themselves. I don't know what to do for the emotional snowflakes, but so my idea is just that you are probably thinking about too much of the emotional problems people have. Probably more of those are due to our garbage culture today than.
Well, that's more of just like the starting point, I guess. But then I like the fact that a religion in a mixed economy gives you the power then to do education your way, or then you can have your own bank to funnel money to then spread your, whatever your dogma is. In this case, it would be to empower individuals and reason and do all that stuff. And so I'm seeing it.
People are going to take exception to you calling it a dogma, of course.
I mean, wording. However, I look at that as semantics.
Right.
Like,
okay.
Like, but that then gets you in the door to then, okay, rather than having a Christian YMCA, we have an individual YMCA. So rather than little kids in the gym playing basketball, looking up and reading a Bible quote and God loves you, don't forget to sacrifice yourself to him, then instead it's like a John Galt quote or something. Some kind of like something like that. And then also, rather than a Y, with a Y, but then also you can have schools. So then you can do your Indian, if you want to create a school system with the way that guy from India did it in that TED Talks, that you can do that. And
now,
then you can.
Are you talking about the one where he put the computer in the wall and left?
Yeah, where the kids taught themselves.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah. And the kids asked him, "How do we do this or that?" And he said, "I don't know," and he left.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, and then for like trade schools type stuff, you could have a workshop for that type stuff, because any activity you can name, it can be a hobby for one person or a profession for another person. But basically, I want then a building that would be designed for people to use to build skills, whether it's as a hobbyist or as a professional. You would have the opportunity then to do that, and yeah. But then you could do it your way, so you wouldn't even have to make kids go to school until they're 18, because you would have the cover of religion. I mean, if people want to like use that against us, then we got to play the game the way that the game is played, and I mean, we can call it a secular club when the world is ideal and there's no regulations whatsoever. But the way that I look at it is as long as there's regulations, there's still a gun to our head, and religion allows us to then funnel people away.
Oh, register it as a religion because of the American system of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
like the Ayn Rand Institute's registered as a non-profit because
Yes.
that's
Yep.
the system
Yep.
we're in.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, and then
That's
what's the religion? Ostensibly, the religion that we would have or that would be there would be.
Just break objectivism down into the main 5 or 6 pillars or whatever, like.
So
And
you're not gonna tell the CIA or the FBI or IRS, whoever it is, you're not gonna tell them that it's ultimately a Christian religion or something like that.
No. It's whatever. I mean, humanism. I'm assuming humanism has all the same rights as Christianity.
I hope so.
Like whatever. Like if it doesn't have the same rights as Christianity, then that should be fought legally because that is completely wrong. Because I am expecting like Howard Roark was very religious about being his individual self, and like that's what this is about. It's just providing a clubhouse for people then to use. Because I mean, you still have to organize in some way, but then we just have that, and it's the loose, the very basic dogma, whatever you need to qualify as religion, but it's all individual reason, capitalism, 100% free market, like, and the religion is just freedom for the individual to live their life, and then you use the religion to you really use the religion cover of law to just do what we know we should anyway. I mean, we're not like using these special powers to do something wrong. Like, I mean, that's like I will say that I had a lot of these ideas done and completed a while ago, but I was like wrestling around with myself of like, am I trying to be a Hitler, or like what am I like trying to like all the other religions are wrong. Like, what are you doing? But like, I'm like, that's why I came to then the adults in the room, the objectivists, and if we could have a social clubhouse with an adult chief all over the place, individual freedom would come into this world much quicker. And even after it still has a purpose that it like would serve people.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely historical precedent for it. There's the Greek gymnasium, and there's Benjamin Franklin's cabal, and so there's definitely historical precedent for secular, educational and political sort of clubhouses. So there was a book called Bowling Alone about how bowling leagues have disappeared because everybody's off doing whatever they're doing and nobody can get together to do anything anymore.
Okay.
I don't know who wrote that book, but it's about the general trend in our culture to not get together and do things and to always be off alone, apparently on computer screens or something, whatever we're doing. So, my question is, do you think maybe this is something that could also be expanded into other countries and other cultures?
100%. That's why it's a religion. 100%. That's why it's a religion. If Onar wants to do one himself, or if he doesn't want to himself, then if he wants to find someone and groom someone to then be a chief and start one, perfect.
I'm afraid
Like
I'm afraid Finland probably suffers from the same situation as the United States, being very wealthy and everybody sitting in their house comfortable, can't be bothered to so much as put on their coat and go out and join a group somewhere. So your thing might be more applicable in India. Have you thought of such a thing, like where the guy started his school?
Oh, okay. No, I hadn't thought about that.
Now, why did those kids look at that computer in the wall and learn biochemistry from it? Because they had nothing else to do. They were just hanging out in the street.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of kids hanging out in the street. with brains, apparently they can learn biochemistry from a computer screen with no help. So it strikes me as an idea which could be good in America, but could be a huge influence in a place like India.
If there's an objectivist in India, that'd be perfect to do something
to start them out. And I don't know what kind of regulations exist in India. It's probably a mess all over the place, different regulations.
It's respected as religion all over the world.
Right? Yeah, it couldn't be bad to have objectivism spread.
And we have objectivism, and how I look at this is this is my plan to not spread objectivism.
What do you mean by that? I don't get.
I'm not going to. It's not an objectivist social club, but like the principles are the every single education and library that it has, every single one has to have a section with her books. So it will be there, and I'm attracting people in, but I'm not putting it in their face. It's clearly there. Like it obviously has a special place in the thing.
So,
but I'm not putting it in your face. It's a back door.
Some leftist media is going to come and they're going to say these clubhouses are spreading Ayn Rand's ideas, and you're going to say no, we have her books over here on the shelf, but no, we're not spreading her ideas. Right? You're not spreading objectivism, right?
Not.
All right, I like the cynical slyness of it. I'm in favor of it.
I can play their games exactly how like.
And they'll say, "Where's the shelf with Karl Marx's books?"
Oh, at bathroom time.
Now, presumably, maybe you should have Karl Marx, Immanuel Kant, and the Bible.
I mean, like the world is the way it is, and it got to the state that it is because of everything that's been in it. So they need an accurate assessment of what it is. I think one of the like growing up as a millennial, especially one that grew up in a northern suburban upper middle class town, like I wasn't aware of a lot of things, and then like I had to face stuff later on, and it's much harder to face stuff later on and truths of the world than to deal with it as you're growing up. As a kid you can learn things and accept them and integrate them much more simply into a blank slate than a blank slate of ideas. But it's much easier to do that rather than, scratch out what you just had and have been using for a long time. I know that firsthand from my experience with Christianity. It's taken a long time to undo the knots. Like if you picture a balloon, the balloons that you make animals out of, like how they're long, like if you take and you just twist all knots into it, it's hard to undo.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an older brother who said snide things to me about the culture and about movies once in a while, and that gave me a couple of things that I never accepted the general populace's way of looking at things. And he had read Ayn Rand, which is why he made these snide comments to me about, oh, look at these stupid actors in this movie and what they're saying. And then I internalized that as a 9 or 10-year-old, and when I was 14 and 15 and I read Atlas Shrugged, this stuff just made sense to me. I said, yeah, of course, I've seen that these guys were idiots for years. My brother told me how stupid they were, and I've noticed it all along.
Yeah.
So by having somebody mention some truth to you when you're young, as you grow up, you watch that truth, and you watch how true it is, and then you read Atlas Shrugged when you're 16, and you go, yeah, I got it. I see that.
Okay. See, I didn't even meet her until I was 30, and the first one I got was Philosophy Who Needs It, and I read it, and then it was like, because at the time I was, individual rights, but I didn't understand how the economy integrated into everything because of Christianity's eye of the needle. Like that 100% like made me think money was bad. Like it hasn't been like it. I feel embarrassed to say this, but it's true. It hasn't been a full year since I've actually understood that money, honestly earned, is 100% moral and virtuous.
Wow.
And and so even as a poker player, that's why it was hard, like, for me to ever have a full integrated plan, because if I ever got too good at poker, then I would be making too money, and that was like subconsciously a bad thing, but I hadn't like addressed it yet. And it was Yaron's book, The Moral Case for Finance, that helped me understand that more.
Nice.
And so that was really good. And like, but yeah, like, if you don't understand money, then like it, you know. But then after I read her the Philosophy Who Needs It, then I read The Fountainhead, and I just love the opening line of Fountainhead. Howard Rourke laughed. Just, but then yeah, and then read Atlas Shrugged, and I mean, it all made sense. And, but yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered probably what we need to. Let's say thank you very much to the ladies and gentlemen for viewing.